Hello! Welcome! It's been a little bit since Levels Plus Weekly has been a thing. I apologize for that. The last 2 weekends have been a little out of my hands, so to say. 2 weeks ago, I finished an event I'd been working on at work for 3 years. So I was pretty tired by the time the weekend rolled around. And then last week, I had a little washer dryer situation that I needed to resolve. So the good news is I'm on vacation this week, so we're going to make up all that lost time, and we're going to start with episode 56 today, and then 57 will land on Thursday, 58 will land on Sunday as normal, and hopefully we'll continue that pattern through the summer. So what are we talking about today? Well, not E3's over. So we're going to go through and I'm going to share the 15 games that I liked the most from not E3. And we'll also have a little pickup at the end from my good friend JD, who sent me something in the mail. So let's go ahead and switch on over to our fancy reaction screen. And we'll go ahead and start with the game that I thought stole the show, which is Street Fighter VI. So for transparency purposes, I did not like Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter V looked so much like Street Fighter 4 that it really didn't catch my attention at first. And while they have done some things recently with 5 to kind of get it to be a little less rigid, especially since Ono left, and I truly lie the blame of my feelings about Street Fighter 4 and 5 on Ono. I don't really like what he was doing when he was at Capcom in the role that he was. And it kind of shows because all of the fighters from that period just didn't connect with me. But 6 is picking up in a new art direction. It's making some bold choices. It's having a story mode, which is on display here, where you get to create a fighter and wander around the world and get into fights. But I also think that the art style is really strong in this game. Once you actually watch some of the fights in motion with the effects that they decided to use, and so much options. That's one of the things that I felt was really missing in Street Fighter 4 was options. You didn't have lots of supers, for example. You had a limited super that you could pick. And then 5 followed suit in that way. And then it had V skills and V triggers and V reversals. But that still didn't really feel like the expanded opportunities that one could have in Street Fighter Alpha 3, for example, which is my favorite game, or in Capcom vs. SNK 2. It really just felt like they took the wrong lessons from Street Fighter 3 in terms of simplifying the mechanics. But with 6, they've done a lot of really cool stuff to make the game much more fully featured. There's returning characters with brand new techniques. You've got all these different skills that you can use with Drive, which is also your guard meter, which is fascinating. You have 3 supers again. It looks great on everything that it could. I'm just excited. I am really excited that I am into a Street Fighter game again. I haven't been into a Street Fighter game this much since Alpha 3, and that was a long time ago. So I'm really hopeful that this will be everything that I hope it will be, and will just be the amazing Street Fighter fighting experience I've so missed. I've really missed being into a brand new Capcom fighting game. The next game, number 2, is Demon's School by Necrosoft, and I forget the name of the publisher, but it was there, you saw it. This game looks incredible. This showed up at the PC Gamer Showcase, but it is coming to all platforms. And I love how this game looks, and it's definitely evoking a PS1 era Persona-esque vibe, but it also has grid-based combat, which I think is really fascinating. I just love how this game looks. It's got such a strong style. It's got really interesting looking mechanics. And like watching these characters run around in these 3D spaces, but they're 2D sprites, just looks sick. Absolutely want to know more about this game. It has a lot of the things that I think that I would love in an RPG like this. And let me be honest, I love a lot about Persona. There's just things about how it handles gender and LGBTQ topics that really don't work for me. And I'd like to hope that Demon School manages to avoid those problems and give me an experience similar to a Persona game where I can really be into it again. Because I do miss that. I miss it a lot. But Demon School is definitely one of the coolest games that was announced at this conference of sorts. Number 3 goes to Stray. As you have probably guessed by my handle, I love cats. And there's not enough games where you get to be cats. I will admit that there is one piece about this game that has me concerned about it, but I'll get to that when we get there. But you get to be this little stray kitty wandering around in a dystopic city, dealing with robotic citizens, some of whom seem to be scared of you. You've got a little PDA backpack. You get to be a cat and knock things over, because that's what cats do. The cat's animations are spectacular, and I think having like an action-adventure style game where you are an animal and using animals' capabilities with a little bit of cybernetic assistance is a really cool idea. Now, the part that I'm a little concerned about is, what's going to happen if the cat gets hurt? Because that's not going to be fun to deal with. I don't like seeing animals get hurt. So I'm hoping that that's not a huge part of the game. But Stray really stood out at Sony's State of Play, I think, and definitely was one of the games that caught my attention the most over Naughty 3. Alright, number 4 is The Last Case of Benedict Fox. Now, there was quite a few really strong-looking Metroidvania-style games shown off at Naughty 3. This one was at Microsoft's show in particular. But I was pretty blown away at this game, and it might just be because I felt so much of Microsoft's show was really uninteresting. The thing that really stood out to me about this particular game is its influences. It's definitely got some Lovecraftian vibes to it, a lot of Cthulhu-esque elements showing up. It's a very dark, moody, atmospheric game with this demonic element to it that I think is really fascinating. It also does things a little bit differently than your usual Metroidvanias. It looks like there's a much heavier reliance on story, chase elements, exploration, in environments with like a flashlight and stuff like that. I think this just has a really cool vibe about it that's different than the usual. He also has some really cool powers. This scene, though, makes me wonder how combat's going to work out. Do you have a very limited lifeline? So I have a lot of questions about this game, but I think that it's also one of the most interesting ones that I saw. Unfortunately, for me at least, this is probably not coming to a platform I could play it on, but it was still a standout during the event. Shredder's Revenge! Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got their final trailer. Of course, the game's out now, and I've actually watched the whole playthrough because I just couldn't resist. I'm not going to be able to play it until August because I ordered the physical and I want to get this physically. And I don't want to buy it twice. But it looks so good. And it looks like it's capturing everything from those iconic Konami beat-em-ups of yesteryear, with incredible sprite work, a refined combat system, 6-player option, the ability to play as more than just the turtles, and it's pretty beefy. The campaign's 16 stages long, a lot of homages to classic cartoon villains and references. This game does what it needed to do. So I'm really excited to give it a try for myself in a few months. And since it's online as well, I should be able to play with people, which will be a lot of fun to give this a go. So yeah, what a wonderful, wonderful game this turned out to be. Good job, .emu and Tribute. Next up, number 6, is I Was a Teenage Exo Colonist. Had to remember. This was shown, I believe, at the Guerrilla Collective? No, this was a Day of the Devs game. There was a lot of good stuff at Day of the Devs this year. This is a beautiful looking game that I feel like just didn't get a whole lot of acclaim during the not E3 period. But it has a lot of sim elements. You use cards to level up your character. You grow up over the years. You have a social link system with a bunch of different people. From my understanding, it's pretty open in terms of gender and sexuality as well. The art is beautiful. I think that this is incredible. But it's basically an adventure game with a bunch of extra elements on top of it, and I'm pretty stoked to give it a shot and see how it works. There's definitely a lot of fascinating bits going on here that I think would be a really compelling game. And it looks like there's some time elements in there as well. But absolutely gorgeous looking game. So yeah, that one's pretty exciting. Number 7 goes to what Sony led off State of Play with, the Resident Evil 4 remake announcement. So I'm just going to skip ahead slightly so we actually get to the content of this trailer instead of being stuck in the word forever. This has been rumored for a long time, and Resident Evil 4 is my favorite Resident Evil game. It's right outside my top 15, and I remember feeling like this is great, but it doesn't take away from the original game. And that's what I have to remember. I think that the new character designs look fantastic. The mood is awesome. Of course, it looks amazing because it's on the RE engine, and Capcom is just delivering on all fronts with that thing. We get to have all of these characters experience new life. This entire game have new life, and I'm really curious to see what they do with it, because it has a really strong core. But like I said, the original game's still there. So if they take out all of Leon's snippy sarcasm, that's okay. It'll still be in the original game. So I'm curious to see more on Resident Evil 4. I hope that it turns out well like 2 did, and it's not so much like how Resident Evil 3 ended up going. I still don't know how to pronounce this game. Skim, I'm guessing. Well, this is such a cool looking game. This showed up at a few different places. But you are this little shadowy frog thing, and you get to travel around the world in shadows. And you have to like use the environment well to get around. It's just a short trailer. But I think that this is a very cool looking game. The mechanics look really intriguing. I want to know more about how it works. It looks like you filled up a shadow on the mailbox earlier. So there's a lot of neat stuff going on with this game, and I'm curious to see more about it. Alright, number 8, I think. This was the highlight of Devolver's show for me. All Possible Futures is a new studio from the art director from Game Freak. He left to create his own games, and this is the first effort, The Plucky Squire. And I think this is such a fascinating concept. So it looks like you're just playing like a really well-animated homage to Zelda 1 and 2 on the NES in a storybook-like format. Incredible artwork, and then you have this moment where it's like, oh, there's Punch-Out. Oh, there's some track and field homage. But then you get to this warp, and you jump into the real world, and it becomes a completely different game. So I am intrigued by what this game could translate to. Because you'll get to wander around this room, you get to join other worlds like on that cup and on this container, do puzzles. Just such a cool looking game that I think was a real standout for Devolver to pick this one up. Even though it is very much outside of their usual aesthetic, props to them for funding this game. Speaking of Metroidvanias, number 9 went to Meera and the Legend of the Jinns. This is a fantastic looking Metroidvania, gorgeous sprite work. What made this one stand out over a couple others on my list was the grapple mechanics and the fact that you are a character of color, from what I could tell. But this is a cool looking game, and it looks incredibly fun. Like, there's just a lot of options for combat, there's a lot of options for moving around the environments, and it's just a gorgeous looking game with incredible sprite work. And it's about, it just looks like it's representing characters and creatures and gods that you don't see a whole lot of. So I'm excited for this one quite a bit, and I'm hoping that it'll eventually come to Switch. 9 Years of Shadows is another Metroidvania. This one has been in development for quite a while. This one looks fantastic, as they all do, on my top 15. Had quite a few really strong looking Metroidvania games. And this one has gorgeous, like, cutscene artwork. The thing about 9 Years of Shadows, why it's not as high on my list, because if you watch the reaction, I was pretty pumped about it until it revealed a composer. Michiru Yamane is helping compose on this game. And I just, it's unfortunate that she has become QAnon tied. Because it really just kind of flattened a lot of like the hype about this game. Because look at how awesome this game looks. It's colorful, wonderful sprite work. The combat looks really engaging. The armor is all really cool looking. It's not sexualized in any way. It's got really awesome traversal options. But, you know, when you bring in someone that is very far right in her thinking, it's kind of hard to get interested in things that she works on. And I'm gonna have to do some research on this game proper to actually know like what the thoughts of the devs are, because it's probable that they didn't have any idea and they just decided to bring in Yamane because of her Castlevania legacy, which makes sense. But unfortunately, there's more to her now. That being said, I think this game looks incredible. I'm very interested in it. This one is coming to Switch. And I can only hope that Yamane's minimally involved in terms of music and that the devs aren't bothersome as well. So, 9 Years of Shadows. Cool looking game. Really hopeful that it plays as well as it looks.
Hi, I'm Dark.
The Garden Path is a game that I've been pretty interested in for a while. It appeared at Wholesome Direct a little while ago, and it reappeared there again. I think that this has one of the most beautiful adaptations of a storybook art style that I've seen, and there was quite a few of those in the non-E3 this year, which is great. I love the fact that we're getting more artistic and we're moving away from hyper-realism, and especially in the indie front. That was a very short trailer. So I'm excited about the Garden Path. I think that it's going to be a really cool game in terms of just being a chill adventure sim. So fingers crossed that it turns out as well as it looks. This was a shock. Scald against the Black Pyrenees. I did not expect to see such a loving take on the CRPGs of old show up at Guerrilla Collective, and yet here we are with this Pool of Radiance inspired beautiful looking game that really just hit me so hard when I saw it. It just took me back to when I had a Commodore 64 and was playing Path of Radiance and the Bard's Tale and those in Temple of Aspera. Aspshi, I forget what exactly it was. This is not coming to Switch. It's probably going to stick around just on Steam. But I want to give it some big ups because I think it's a really cool looking game. Next up, number 14 is Decarnation, which is a horror-influenced, I want to say adventure game. It's been a little while since I saw it, but this is definitely the darkest game that I'm popping on my top 15. And also has some of the most beautiful artwork. That's incredibly morbid, mind, but is really beautiful. But yeah, this game is weird. It's dark. It goes to really creepy places. I'm really interested to learn more about what this is about. Yeah, this artwork here is morbidly beautiful. Last but not least is Season, A Letter to the Future. This is a really cool looking game. It's like Breath of the Wild, sort of, it seems, that you just wander around a country in this particular season, documenting, you're an ethnographer. You're talking to people, you're recording people, you're taking in sounds, documenting things. I love Anthropology, the video game. I think it looks incredible too, has a really strong art style. Really want to know more about it though. It's clear that you take photographs, you talk to people, you record sounds, you're making a journal, talking about all this stuff. But I want to know a little bit more about the story, what's going on with this character, why she's wandering around doing all this, and what this season represents. They talk about season a lot in this trailer. Like when this season ends, it almost sounds like when this world ends type of vibe from this game. But I am hugely interested in this. It probably would be higher on my list if I knew a little bit more about where it was going in terms of the reasoning of why you're playing it. But that'll be found out soon enough. Cool looking game, another strong piece from Sony's State of Play. Clearly Sony won out of the two companies in my opinion, despite Microsoft having so much more time. But those are my top 15 games of not E3. Pretty exciting. Let's quickly jump to the pickup and then we'll conclude this episode. I got a package from my friend JD and I have no idea what's inside. So let's go ahead and open it up and see what surprises lie in store for me. Alright, there is a nice little note that I will read to myself, but it is a copy of The Little Mermaid for the NES, which is something that will help with Nintendo, because this is actually one of the more prominent licensed games with a woman as the protagonist that exists on the NES. There are actually not that many, and I know because I did research on the list of NES games in protags. So that's really cool. Thank you so much, JD. I appreciate it. Well, now you know what I thought was really cool at not E3. I love calling it that. Next year's going to be interesting since E3 is claiming it's coming back, but Summer Games Fest basically held this entire time slot. So it's clear that there's going to be a little bit of a showdown going on between E3 and Summer Games Fest next year. It will be interesting to see how that all plays out. But some really good stuff. Of course, Nintendo was not here. There's a Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Direct tomorrow that I will record a reaction to. And there's a lot of rumors that they're going to have a regular Direct next week. We'll see about that. But even without Nintendo's presence, there was some pretty strong stuff shown off. And it was fun. It was a lot of fun to actually watch a good chunk of this stuff and react to a good chunk of it. So that is the dealio for this episode. But like I said, there'll be a reaction tomorrow. Thursday, we'll have the Pocky and Rocky Reshrined episode, which I'm actually going to record right after this. So that'll be your Thursday. And then Sunday, we will be talking about Capcom Fighting Collection in more detail, because I'll actually have it. It's coming out this Friday. And it's the one of the 3 games I'm most hyped about that I'll actually have. So I will have impressions on the game for you. So I hope you'll tune in for that. So, until tomorrow, my dear friends, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful week, and take care.